Hello, everyone, and welcome to Gitsapalooza. I am lucky today to be able to interview Gordon Cunningham. He is the owner of GCT and the brain behind Bushido. So I'm here to ask Gordon a few questions, and he's been kind enough to agree to answer. Gordon, thanks for joining me.
Cool, thank you.
We're at Adepticon, which is why we're in the same place. And we just had a tournament. I'll let Gordon talk about that later, but it seemed to be very successful and a lot of fun. So, Gordon, as Americans who are fans of Bushido and players, the biggest thing that is on everybody's mind is what plans do you have for expanding your footprint in the U.S. market? Why don't you tell us about it?
No, definitely, and it's a good question. We get asked a fair amount of times. And it's obviously a concern as any gamer. You want to make sure that you have access to the games you want to play. And we've implemented quite a few things in the last 12 months that will hopefully support that. And the biggest one is our attendance at GAMA a few weeks ago, which is, for those that don't know, it's a big trade show here, which we think went quite well. Lots of context, lots of interest in Bushido. We've also repackaged, or working on repackaging, which will coincide with the new version, box sets, etc. like that, which is lots of the US stores have particularly asked for. Means they can keep a smaller footprint of Bushido but still stock the line. So I think a couple of those things coupled together will definitely give us a expansion within the US. We still have the, to create those player bases, so it's exposure in the game. So if the more people we can encourage to play Bushido, those communities grow. There's communities, then the stores will stock it if there's a demand for it. So we're doing everything we possibly can just to reassure people as well that we're definitely working towards trying to get a bigger footprint in the US, and whether that means we need to attend more US shows, etc., just to gain our exposure. Exposure brings more players, more player base means the stores are more likely to stock the range. So we're working through a multifaceted approach to just try to get a bigger footprint in the US, and I think we're slowly getting there. You alluded to the event you ran for us today. We had a good sign up for that. So there has been steady growth within the USA, and I definitely think implementing what I've just said will give us that tipping point, possibly, if you will, where stores will be more willing to take it because it's not such a risk for them.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you had mentioned some of the new boxes, and you had you didn't actually have the models, but you had the boxes and some of these new 3-on-3 box sets.
Yep.
Why don't you tell us a little bit, other than the what you just explained? Yep. What are your thoughts behind introducing these 3-on-3 sets?
Well, again, it's from an access point of view. Bushido already is a very low price point game, but as anyone knows, it's a big market, so there's lots of competition. So doing the 3-on-3 games, it's a play out of the box style is what we're aiming for. So you buy that one box. It will be an introduction to Bushido. It will give you your tokens, your access to the rules, access to models. It'll be a very low price point. So currently, although this isn't set, so don't hold me to it, but it's going to be around this cost of a standard starter set. So here in the US, though, it's around $40, which I think is very, very accessible to people. And the thinking, is that it makes it accessible to more people. $40 isn't a lot of money,
right.
But it makes it accessible to lots of people who want to debate that. So it's like, I can take this $40, I have two armies I can then play, I can introduce a friend to, etc. And if I like the game, I'm going to buy a starter set, or I'm going to upgrade from that, etc. And the idea behind that is it all basing down is to footprint in retail stores and accessibility for players, because those go side in side essentially.
I must say that all my friends and I are really impressed with the new sculpts. They're very exciting. They're easy to put together. They're as much as possible molded in very few pieces, yet they are still dynamic and posing and everything. And
it's obviously we've been around for a while now, and those of you that buy some of the earlier sculpts will know we've obviously learned a lot. We also fortunately have a sculpting manager now who deals with all the sculpting. And he follows quite a strict brief on what we're looking for in models. Do you know what I mean? So, in the same breath, like you said, we don't want to lose the dynamics in the model. You know, we don't want single piece statue models. It takes away from the aesthetics, etc. But in the same breath, you don't want a 500 piece model to produce a single playing piece. So, I mean, we're quite conscious of that, and Ben's doing a fantastic job, managing the sculptors, and he does quite a lot of the sculpting himself as well, so he's talked from experience. Whereas, I'm the first to hold up my hands and saying, when I was managing that side of things, I'm not a sculptor, so I didn't see those aspects of it. And so single piece or 2 or 3 piece, and even multi-part models where are necessary, but as long as they easy assemble, so you have ball joints or etc. now, which just makes assembling the model a lot easier, makes the model more durable, especially if you're transporting it around and that. So, we have a checklist now that we follow through. So I think most people will agree, if they look at it, that we've managed to keep the dynamics of the model, but definitely improved overall in terms of the sculpting, keeping scale consistent, thematics consistent, etc. on the model. So that's kind of all been bought and easier managed because it's in-house now as well. So.
Right. Do you have a release time for the new models in the 3-on-3 boxes?
We do. So the intention is to do a couple of those. The first one will be a prefecture versus Ito. Mm-hmm. So it'll be 3 prefecture, 3 Ito. It will come with a mini campaign, which is also a learning tool, so that you can play through the little campaign. It'll teach you all the nuances of Bushido as you go through. Hopefully by the end you'll understand most of the rules, be able to play them. And that is due for release at UK Games Expo. Will be on pre-sale possibly there, but definitely the general release will be for Gen Con 2019. So,
all right, excellent. So one of the things everybody's excited about is the rumors, more than rumors per se, but the development of a new rule set called the Risen Sun.
Sure.
So I was curious, what was behind the motivation to come up with a new rule set? What are you trying to accomplish by these revisions? And you just kind of fill us in. Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, sure. I'd just like to start by saying I'm one of the people that are excited by it as well. Bushido's been around for a while. For those of you that have been playing for a while, you'll got the idea that as models develop, as any progressive game, erratas are going to develop. Things that may have worked initially may not because of introduction of new models or new mechanics or whatever the case may be. And at some point you have to make a decision that you need to correct those. And I think at this point, this was the time. The errata got quite long. We've got quite a big model count. Some of the models may be deemed to be, out of balance, etc. And so trying to bring those individually in balance was very difficult. So it was taking the decision that we would bring all those erratas in, streamline the rules slightly. The core mechanic of the game has stayed consistent, but we've brought all the other mechanics within the game to follow that same core mechanic. It gave us the opportunity, obviously, to balance those models that we feel were unbalanced, rebalance the lists. Because one of the key things in Bushido is what we definitely wanted to do is keep the individual factions feeling different, and right. I think we've achieved that to date. But in the same breath, at some point, like those balances start leading into one another. And this was give us an opportunity to readdress those. So, as a prime example, like the Ito model is a good example. So they've become slightly less in wounds, as an example, but they've gained some in movement. So so we've managed to re-isolate the thematics within that faction to keep them unique and feel different to the other factions. And so, yes, like I said, it gave us the opportunity to readdress those, rebalance those kind of things within the core mechanics in that other game.
One of the things going along with that when my friends and I talk about it, or people talk about it, we like to have, and I think you guys have done this or are doing this, is that there should be a purpose for every model.
Sure.
To be able to be played, because people fall in love with certain models and it doesn't have anything to do with how effective they are, or they just like, man, I love this model. And we don't need those models to be superheroes, but we need them to be at least legitimate enough to put on the table. And I get the feeling that as you're rebalancing everything, that's part of it. You're maybe identifying models that are underperforming a little bit and are really cool, and you'd love to see more people play, but you're rejiggering things a little bit to make those more viable as options.
Definitely, that is super valid, and I mean, nail on the head in that, because like everyone's a character in Bushido, so even your, like you say, your lowly peasant performs some role within your lists, and it's quite important that, as gamers ourselves, you don't want to just be releasing models because that's what we do. You want to release models that are cool, that serve a purpose within the list, and and thematic. So you want some cool. Like you said, I mean, Bushido is all about thematics within the game you're playing, and keeping every model involved in that. You don't want a swarm of peasants that are just peasants. You want people to be motivated, by the thematics that is a cool champion of the peasants, for argument's sake, or whatever the case may be. And yes, you are quite right. I mean, we make a conscious decision in all the models we do to try to keep that within the feel of each model individually.
So with this new exciting edition coming out, I know you guys are still working on it, but do you have a concrete release date for these rules, or what can you tell us about when you think they're going to be out?
So the rules, as a lot of you probably know, have been out for beta testing for a while now. We've made a few changes to that from public feedback, which has been fantastic, by the way. So thank you everyone who's listening to this. If you've contributed in any way to that, even if you've just read through them, that's fantastic. So we've now closed the beta testing. It will go some more in-house testing, editing, and then to book layout. So realistically, I mean, we're aiming to coincide this new version with the release of the two-player starter set. So we are looking at a Gen Con 2019 release for this version. Obviously, we don't want to put out a subpar product endly. So currently, that's the target we're aiming for. We're on schedule for that target, but as you know, there's always potential that something may crop up or whatever the case may be. So in terms, I mean, we're aiming for Gen Con 2019. That's the anticipated release date for it.
One of the neat things about Bushido is, even though there has been rule books, the fact is that the rules are available for free online, including all the errata and updates and everything. Is the new rule set going to be available the same way, or is it going to be limited to books that we have to pay for?
No, definitely not. It will be a free download as it currently is. We are obviously going to print a printed version, because that's cool.
Yeah.
But the rules themselves will stay online, and as you said, all the updated erratas will be updated, so that will still all be a free download. For you, those of you who don't know as well, we offer the cards online as well, so you could print them out if you don't, if you want to just proxy without, try the game out before you buy anything, or whatever the case may be. That will remain exactly the same as well. So, I mean, there's no intention to take that side of the rules out. Yeah.
Are there going to be? Is there going to be additional writing, like fluff and storyline? Are there going to be additional storylines added either in the book or in other formats for the new edition?
Yes and yes. So the book itself that will be released for Gen Con is essentially a rule book. So the fluff will be very limited in it. It's going to be a low-cost book, so it will be just the rules. There'll be minimal amounts of fluff and stuff in that. We're currently working on a full lore book, which will incorporate a campaign system for Bushido as well. So that's currently getting penned as we speak. We've got a few people working on that. That should be the first quarter or second quarter of next year when that will be available, and that will be a full 256-page lore book, campaign system and stuff to build the world. On top of that, we've got a writer on board who's going to draw the information out of my head so that we can put to pen the Jiwa Isles, and we can build the lore in the world, which I think at the moment, personally, I think is quite lacking. I mean, there's lots of it, but it's piecemeal, if you understand what I mean by that.
Of course.
But so tying all that together, just builds the universe of the Jiwa Isles. So, and speaking of building the universe, obviously, as it's based in the Jiwa Isles currently. When the lore book comes out, you'll see there's a slight expansion out on that. So I don't want to say too much more about that, but there's some cool things coming for Bushido. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to ask you, pronounce, because everybody here pronounces it wrong.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Say it again.
What, the Giroirs?
Yeah. Because we all say Joir or
Giroir,
some version of that.
Well, it's the same. It's quite a weird thing because it's the same with chi and ki and whatever else. You know what I mean? It's you pronounce it what you feel comfortable pronouncing it. You know what I mean? So I'm not saying my pronouncing is right, but I mean it comes out of my brain, or my mind. So I call it chi and I call it Giroir. So if you want to call it what you're comfortable with, then yeah.
Well, it is your game. I think you have a little bit of authority if you want to exercise it. All right, thanks.
I'm not going to hold that against anyone, though.
We just did a tournament here at Adepticon. It was on Sunday. We actually offered 24 positions originally. They filled up immediately, so we expanded it to 32. We had some no-shows, but it was a Sunday event from 9 o'clock until 3, so it was suboptimal when it comes to timing, but it's what we were able to get because I decided at the last minute to do it. That was on me. However, I have to say for everybody, GCT, Gordon stepped up in a huge way. I got far more support than I ever expected that I was going to get. Not only having been in this game for a year. I mean, I demoed last year at Adepticon. That was my first game with Gordon, and I charged him, and he says nobody charges. And so we got great support from GCT. We also got great support from Adepticon. Had a bunch of medals to give away. It was really fun. So I just wanted to ask, so what did you think about the tournament? I'm not looking for praise from you. I had fun doing it. I freaked out for a while there, but then I was better. So what did you think about the tournament? What'd you like about it? What's it like compared to a European tournament?
Sure. And
what are your plans for Bushido at major venues, Bushido tournaments at major venues like Adepticon, like LVO, like Nova? What are your plans for the future?
Definitely a good question again. Well, events are fantastic, and as you've pointed out, they galvanize different communities to play together, build communities even from that. So the event today, fantastic. There was no negatives to it. I mean, I walked around every round, few rules queries, but other than that, everyone understood what they were doing. Had fun, which is the most important thing, I guess, beyond anything else. It was well organized, well run, so thanks a lot for that. Yeah, the boards look fantastic. And again, that's a good draw, people walking by looking at nice boards. I mean, we play miniature games because we like the aesthetics of it. So yeah, that was all positive. I think the turnout was great. Run very well, like I said. The meta here is slightly different than the European events. The lists here were like kind of looking at it a bit weird, saying why would people take that kind of list? But you know what, it works obviously. It works here. So we do see it, I guess, from the UK to Europe as well. There's different metas in the lists and that they build. I mean, in terms of how the events run, very similar, clearly. I think one thing we have a slight issue with in Bushido is just the timings in rounds, but we're looking in the new version to address some ways of addressing that. It can be frustrating at points when the time's called and you're only on turn 3 or 4 or something like that. So we're looking at ways to address that. And then obviously beyond this event, once the new Dawn version comes out, we'll be looking to try run events as many big US shows as we can. We're also working on a event support package which would give retail stores the option to run smaller events, like 6 or 8 man events and stuff like that, and they would get support to do those, again just to try galvanize the communities so we can grow the footprint of Bushido generally.
Excellent. Cool. There's been a bunch of new releases. There's been a brand new clan, the Minamoto clan, the Bear clan,
sure,
that has been released, as well as a bunch of little 1-point snakes, which are my son absolutely just burns my bottom with for a bunch of little 1-point critters. So so tell us about the Minamoto clan and how that's been for you guys, and what's coming up next.
Yeah, cool. The Minamoto clan specifically was our test clan, if you will, for new sculpting, because like I said, we brought Ben on, which was quite interesting. So he had a lot of input into positioning those models and stuff, so we could still keep them quite dynamic, but keep them simpler in terms of construction, etc., like that. But in terms of fluff for the Minamoto, they obviously the newest faction, so they have a limited model count. Mm-hmm. They do have being the bear clan. I can definitely tell you there are some more bears on the horizon, which I'm quite excited for, because the concepts, without giving too much away, are just looking like really fantastic, and the sculpts are going to be absolutely mind-blowing when you see them. They're really good, so I'm quite excited for those. I don't want to give too much away because there's a big fluff piece that comes along with these, which will get trickle-fed down on the website, so there'll be a big build-up to these. And then more importantly for other stuff coming out. So as the event was run today, for those that don't know, the grand prize was obviously collaborating with GCT Studios to do a model for the game. So they would have input into the backstory for this model and the concepts and the game mechanics, etc. for that. But it's not the first time we've done that. So in the UK event, we generally run one each year, and the winner of the UK's Masters gets to collaborate with us in that. So we've got that model to do, plus this model to do, and the European Masters, which was run in Holland last year, had the same prize support. So we have 3 really cool fan-driven models, and that will be the next release after Gen Con. So Gen Con release will be our new 2-player starters and our new rules with the updated cards, and then the wave after that will be these 3 really cool, hopefully cool, because I don't actually know what they are yet, to be honest with you. I know what one of them was because we're busy developing it, but the other 2 are quite new, so we'll see what they come out. But you know what, the exciting thing is that they'll be fan driven, so the winner of these events has had a fantastic opportunity just to drive what they really want to see within the Bushido world, and hopefully they come out really cool. So that will be the wave after Gen Con, and then moving beyond that, we quite consciously always developing multiple factions alongside one another. So we don't stick to a strict release schedule in terms, because we work with, once we feel that one is actually at a point where we can look to release it as a faction within the game, that's kind of the route we take, rather than saying we need to make this faction work within the game, because then you feel like you start, trying to shoehorn things in where they don't necessarily fit. So we've got a few factions we're kind of working on, some really cool, some really quirky ideas, as well as some very individualized theme box sets, which will they'll be attached to a faction per se, but they will be very independent. In fact, that they'll want to work just out of that box set, which we're quite excited. Without giving too much away about them, hopefully we'll have one of those previewing, but not available for Gen Con as well. So,
all right, thank you. All right, Gordon. Well, thank you very much for hanging out with me. You've been more than generous. Again, as the TO, I cannot thank you enough for all the support you give me. I had no idea what I was getting into, and it went really well. And the support you gave, both in prize support, but in answering rules questions. Gordon was the de facto, I was like the organizer, Gordon was the de facto, if somebody's got a rules question, we kept running back and forth to the merchant area when he wasn't over with us, and I just go, Gordon, well, I don't know what the answer to this is. It was hilarious. So thank you so much. It was a joy to run the tournament. The guys were great. I'm really excited about next year. I plan on doing Adepticon again next year. And the fact that I think, I know you guys roll your eyes, but, we don't get to see you guys much. So you're kind of rock stars when you come here. It's like, oh, I got to meet Gordon and, talk to Alistair, or I got an email from Jason, and it's just kind of cool to get a chance to interact with you. I know it's a very expensive proposal for you guys to get over here, but when you do, I'm glad you're sitting with us, because we'll make the best of it. And I think you definitely made the best of it this week. The people are really excited. Your booth was really busy. You were selling models everywhere. I sent a bunch of guys to you during either when we were just doing pickup games earlier in the week, or even during the tournament, I had guys come over and say, well, where can I get a demo of this? And I sent them over. So I really think that Bushido has all the potential to be really big here in the States. We just need to sort out the mechanics of it all. And I'm really excited that you guys are doing that.
Definitely. Thank you, firstly, for taking the time. Thank you for giving me the time. It's always great. You ran an event, you could have your own time, your own budget essentially to do it. So for that, we obviously as thankful. I guess without retainers and people willing to run events, etc. like that, it just game just wouldn't grow. So I mean, it's a two-way street at the end of the day. Do you know what I mean? You may look at us and say, oh wow, but it's like I'm sitting here thinking, wow, you spent so much time of your own time willing to try promote our game. Do you know what I mean? So it's definitely a two-way street. I've as much praise for you definitely as you have for me. So thank you again, Art. Yeah.
All right. Well, Gordon, have a very safe trip back.
Thank you.
And enjoy the rest of your time in Chicago.
Yeah, will do. Thank you very much, James.
Thank you.